What's up everyone, it's Magic here. It's 7 a.m. in Madeira and I do have Sony a7 IV with a new 51.4 G Master and a Sony a7 IV with an old 51.2 G Master. I'm going to be shooting these two all day long today so you can get like more practical approach. So let's do it. So basically the whole idea here behind this shoot was to test these two lenses in like kind of a real scenario. So not from a tripod. Just shoot a portrait with a lens number 1 and then I shoot a portrait with a lens number 2. That's what I mean by the practical approach. So like the difference is also going to be sometimes me being slightly closer or slightly farther away. And in this first photo, it's actually very good picture to see the difference between these two lenses because we have like multiple layers behind our couple. So you can see the first layer being like some of this green stuff on the left side and on the right side, and the second layer would be like the whole mountains in the background and then the ocean and the sky. And you see how different the blur and the rendering of the lenses are. On the right side you have 1.2, which is just slightly smoother and slightly more blurred. Then we waited a bit for a sunrise, and just as we were waiting I decided to take a couple of single portraits of Stoudemire, but this time it's like really close portrait with a background being really far away. So I feel that in case like this the difference is less significant. Obviously, like if you're gonna pixel peep and decided to look for differences, you're gonna see that on the right side you have some areas being slightly more smooth. But let's be real here, this is not the difference that your clients will see or my clients will see and will say, oh yeah, this is definitely a better photo. This is just a tiny difference in a portrait like this. So look at this, we're blessed by epic sunrise. But yeah, so these two lenses, basically you can see the size and the weight difference is actually noticeable. Like you cannot miss the size difference of these lenses. So 51.4 is built almost exactly like 51.2. There's one tiny difference, which is an iris lock, so you can block the aperture, which you cannot on 51.2 G Master. Also like that there's a difference in the front element obviously, but basically they look like brothers, big brother and the young brother. As the sun finally peeked out through the clouds, we had a few minutes of good light because like the sun was already quite high over the horizon. So I snubbed these photos. I turned them black and white because there were like some parts highlight being like slightly blown up. It was like quite difficult scenario to shoot actually. But here, since the ocean is the background and that ocean is not identical in these two photos because the waves are changing, the difference is even smaller. Like in my opinion, it's even harder to tell now the difference between which one is 1.2 and which one is 1.4. So that kind of proves my point that with like a farther distant object, and as we're not just doing like, laboratory comparisons of two identical photos, you're gonna see that that difference is not as significant as you would think. The experience of shooting these two lenses on Sony a7 IVs is identical. Like I was shooting two identical cameras with these lenses and there's no way you can tell a difference that one is superior to another. Both have extremely fast and accurate out of focus. Both are extremely sharp. In my opinion, 1.4 is slightly sharper than 1.2, but it might differ from case to case. And then I snapped a couple more images like these two. So here, if you look at the difference in vignetting, because there is a difference in vignetting, this is something that I couldn't match on these two lenses. Because for 51.4, there's no profile for Lightroom, so I kind of kept it with that vignetting. But with 51.2, I was just able to apply the lens corrections. So that's why the corners appear to be brighter. But yeah, don't judge these lenses because at some point the 51.4 will also have the update in Lightroom. But by judging just the background blur, you can see again we have a situation that the background is farther away, it's in a farther distance. So the difference, in my opinion, is just less significant in these two images. Also, all of these photos are edited with my Magic Cadabra preset that you can purchase along with my editing course, or you can also purchase my flash course if you want to learn about flash photography for wedding photographers. And check it out, the link is in the description. In order to show the bigger difference, I decided to take a single portrait of Heidi's, and here I positioned her just like a couple meters, like maybe a meter and a half away from these branches that I knew that are gonna blur nicely using a 50mm lens. And here you can definitely see a bigger difference. So the lens on the left being 1.4, you see it's just slightly more sharper and, you know, not that smooth as 1.2. And for the final image of that day, we actually had an epic spot with that bit of a sun coming through the clouds. And here again we have the case of our object, meaning couple, being in a far distance from the background. So in this case also I would say it's harder to tell a difference. The difference is less significant between 1.4 and 1.2. If you want to take a look at these images side by side at your own pace, go ahead and check out my PicTime gallery. PicTime, which is a sponsor of this video. PicTime is a gallery provider, so you can see how beautiful the gallery is. And not only you can see the gallery of these comparisons, I included more photos for you to compare, so make sure to check out that link in the description. And also I included a full set of images shot with just 51.4G master during that session, so you can also just see the different results from that new lens. And speaking of PicTime, it's not only an amazing gallery provider, but there's also a built-in store and a slideshow tool that you can create slideshows within your galleries. And now they just added a blog feature, so I also made a blog with these images. There's also a link in the description, so you can check out both the gallery and the blog to see how awesome PicTime is. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to PicTime using my code MAGIC. You get extra month for free, so you can just check the tool and see if it works for you. If you're a wedding photographer, if you're a portrait photographer, I promise you it's worth it. All right, so 51.4 or 51.2, what's the final verdict? So I do think like 51.4 is such a piece of art in terms of sharpness, like amazingly fast out of focus, and it's just the beauty of a lens. I have never seen such a sharp lens. It's even sharper than a 51.2, which makes it like such a great option. What's going to be the difference? The difference obviously is going to be that tiny difference in the background blur. So if you're looking at these tripod photos, this is where you're going to actually see that. So if you have a background closer to a person or a couple that you're shooting, obviously you're going to see that little blur coming up quicker, and everything is going to be slightly blurrier, but the difference is really tiny. And if you're shooting a lot of stuff, you know, like with the farther distance, like that difference is just not so much. So if your priority is a background blur, you're a bokeh person, you love bokeh, you love having like the most blurry background you can, obviously the 51.2 is the way to go. But if your priority is just to have like amazing 50mm lens, oh my god, this one is tiny, and the quality difference actually is in favor of the new 51.4G Master. So if you're prioritizing bokeh, you go with this one. If you're prioritizing quality and the size matters, this one is the way to go. The difference is not that much. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe, and I see you guys in the next video.